understand. And then I just say let's think a little bit more clearly about ICT in particular. I think I'll leave it there.
Right, hard-hitting stuff. Questions at the end, if you don't mind. Sir Bruce, former schools commissioner, Sir Bruce Linton, director of the app. Yes, if you'd give me your thoughts, and particularly good school environments, well-designed school environments today, actually help with education.
Okay, well, can I begin by saying that I wondered whether I should declare an interest, that I was actually there when David Miliband came back from the weekend once and said that we're going to have building schools for the future. Also, as Director General of EACT, we've got the spending of about £300 million of building schools for the future money for our schools. And as Schools Commissioner, I worked out on the train on the way up that I signed off £5 billion worth. So there's a lot of money that's involved here. I thought what I'd do is just mention 12 areas very briefly where I think building schools for the future has had a good effect, has had a dubious effect, and has had a negative effect. And I'll do it very, very quickly. The first is that it's brought huge amounts of money into the system. Having been ahead for 14 years, we've rarely got anything for capital at all, and yet this is a revolutionary impact on the schools that get it. Unfortunately, too much of that money has gone to consultants, many of whom are much better at building schools for the past than they are for the future. And what's now being found is that there's not enough money in the system to cope with all of the eventualities, particularly in sight of normals that are coming up. So that's the first thing. Secondly, do not underestimate the impact that having a shiny new school has on the morale of the people who work in it, whether they're teachers or not teachers or pupils. However, too many of the buildings that are being built are not necessarily appropriate to the needs of the 21st century. They're certainly not flexible enough. And if you go around the schools that have been opened, they are depressingly like the schools that they replaced that were built in the 50s, 60s and 70s in all too many cases. That's the second thing. The third thing, do not underestimate the impact of an initiative of this scale in somewhere like Manchester, where the Education Authority took the opportunity to take a clean sheet look at all of secondary education and go back to first principles rather than just saying we've got some new buildings that we can walk across the field to. Unfortunately, the jury's out on whether or not those debates all over the country were sufficiently focused and whether or not the people who were leading them were actually talented enough and experienced enough in change processes as well as in theoretical ideas to bring about improvement. And thirdly, all too often I think, some of those processes have led to a reinvention of the old wheel rather than the future. The building itself is without a doubt, as I've said, a huge impact on morale. But the amount of time that it takes to build the building and plan the building and get used to the building and adapt the building, don't lose sight of the fact that it won't be perfect when it's finished, is a disincentive for some people to commit themselves to it. And the jury, as one of the other speakers said, is out on whether or not improvement will flow from this investment. It had to happen. The roofs were all leaking, the buildings were falling down, but whether or not standards go up as a result of this huge investment, we don't know, and we still don't know because Ofsted doesn't go and make a judgment as it goes through. The plus side of this is that in a lot of buildings that are new, standards are rising, but in all of them they don't rise, and in some cases standards have gone dramatically down in brand new buildings. And without a doubt, the impact of having a building project going on the school side while the school is still running is a huge pressure for the people who are trying to educate 1,000+ children on the site, which is a building site. Without a doubt, too, building schools for the future, having embraced the Academies programme, made it easier with people who had jobs like I had previous to the one that I've got now to get Academies through, because although in the early days people knew that if they got an academy they would have a new building pretty much straight away, now the Academy Building Schools for the Future programme is synthesised into the BSF programme overall, so academies are not special any longer in that respect. The jury is out on whether the local authority control of the money in the LEP process is a good thing or not such a good thing. As DG in EACT, I can tell you that there's one local authority that I feel is doing us down by about £2 million per project, and I'm not happy about that at all. And I wish there was a pot of money back at the Department for Children, Schools and Families, as there used to be, to top up those sorts of shortfalls of money. But there isn't any longer now. But academies are not blessed by having buildings that are more special. If they ever were, they had buildings that were more expensive originally, but that's another story. I've said that morale rises in building schools for the future, but I've also said that it had to happen. And one lesson is that putting weak and vulnerable schools into new buildings does not automatically bring about improvement. The worst thing you can do is amalgamate 2 weak schools and put them into a new building, because what you get then is a trash new building 6 months later. And if you don't believe me, I'll take you to one not a million miles away from here. BSF has led to greater diversity in the system, but some of that diversity has been achieved at the price of straining people's credulity to come up with governance systems and school systems and organisational systems and structural systems that they don't think are appropriate. And in many cases, diversity has been thwarted. Penultimately, BSF has had a marvellous effect on the correct supply of school places. When it's finished, there should be the right number of good places in the right places all over the country. The downside of that is that it's impossible to predict where you need school places, because it keeps changing all the time. You may as well, frankly, kill a goat and look at the entrails. And if you go down to a city in the southwest of England, you'll know that they put 6 new schools into the middle of the city that did not have popular schools, and people did not automatically go to them. You had half full schools, and they were not immediately successful. But BSF is an answer where members won't close schools. And lastly, BSF in a local authority, again not far from here in Oldham, gives a wonderful opportunity for an imaginative council to come up with plans to break down barriers such as the ghettoised schools in Oldham and put more mixed schools into brand new buildings and upscale the ambition and the synthesis of the population in a place that's been as troubled as Oldham was. The question is whether that's not too hard to achieve, and the jury is out on that one, because it may not work. And so I would say there are still too many councils that are in denial about the standards in some of their schools, that it would be a tragedy if the building schools for the programme were to run out of steam, and that Michael Gove should actually recommit himself to it and put all of the schools that he said he's going to close and give to parent promoters into brand new buildings, because that's the best thing you can do with them.
Excellent, thank you very much. Graham Stewart, MP for Beverley and Holderness. Give me your thoughts. You must have visited quite a few schools in your capacity with schools committees.
Yes, indeed. And the prism through which I look at all education policy is how it impacts on the teaching in the classroom. That's where I start from, because everything else is irrelevant. When you're a governor of a school, as any of you who have been will know, the most important thing is a teacher in the classroom, because everybody else is just a carbuncle on the side of the school compared to the teacher who is presenting. And if you have an outstanding, motivated, supported, professional who feels empowered and confident in the classroom, you get high standards of teaching. That, and this is not to say in any way that I denigrate the desire of everyone, including myself, to have high quality buildings in which that operates. That is true even if there is a bucket in the corner. It is about the teacher. And everything is about supporting professionals able to do that. That is how you transform education. You do not transform education through school buildings. And in case that just appears to be a personal view of mine, there is literature because from all around the world. Because, funnily enough, school buildings exist all around the world. There is plenty of evidence you can go and find and gather in order to see how important the buildings are. And none of us